Korean artists coming up alongside the Winter Olympics in PyeongChang. The North Koreans this afternoon are visiting the concert venues in Seoul and will head back to the north later in the evening. Our Ji Myung-gil is at Seoul's Unification Ministry with the latest. Myung-gil, what can you tell us about the North Koreans' activities so far?
Devin, North Korea's seven-member inspection team has looked around some 3 venues in Seoul. Currently, they're at the Seoul's Waka Hill Hotel where they'll have dinner. Earlier, after having lunch at a hotel, they first looked around the Seoul Student Gymnasium, which is located on the eastern part of the capital, which can host over 5,000 people. Then they looked at the Changchung Arena, which is located in central Seoul, and looked around the facility for 10 minutes before making her way to the National Theater of Korea, where she has spent an hour. Hyun's team will likely take a tour of 1 or more venues before heading back to Korea. The team arrived in Seoul before lunchtime from Gangneung, one of the Winter Olympic host cities. There they visited 2 venues for possible concerts. Hyon Song-wol is a confidant of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and is not only the singer of a popular North Korean band, she also leads the Samjian Orchestra, which will be performing in South Korea during the Olympics. A 140-member art troupe, including the orchestra plus singers and dancers, will give 1 concert each in Seoul and Gangneung. Also, the 2 couriers will have more inspection teams going back and forth starting tomorrow. Devin?
All right, thanks, Myung-gil. We'll check back in with you in a couple of hours. In other news, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa will leave for the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this week to talk about North Korea nuclear issues, as well as the North's participation at the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Minister Kang will be attending the forum with some 70 heads of state and governments. In addition to talks on the nuclear crisis, there'll be an event promoting the PyeongChang Winter Games. The theme at Davos this year is Creating a Shared Future in a Fractured World, and South Korea's foreign ministry expects the gathering will raise the level of understanding of the quickly changing situation on the Korean peninsula. It also hopes to promote the Moon Jae-in administration's people-centered approach to the economy and share its plans for development and security. New data show Korea's producer prices rose slightly in December, reversing a decline the month before. Higher producer prices usually mean that down the road, consumer prices will also rise as well. The higher producer prices were mainly put down to agricultural goods and the service sector. Kim Mo-gyun has this report.
South Korea's producer price index climbed slightly in December after falling the previous month. According to data released by the Bank of Korea on Monday, the index climbed 0.1% on month in December to 103.14. Producer prices had been continuously increasing since July 2017 until they saw a downturn in November. The central bank attributed December's rise to price hikes in agricultural goods and the service sector. Producer prices for agricultural goods have increased 6% on month, with prices of strawberries and pumpkins jumping 114% and 65% respectively. Prices in the service sector edged up 0.1% due to a rise in the number of tourists visiting for winter tours. Accommodation fees at condominiums and hotels jumped 21% and 6% each. Prices of petrochemical goods also rose more than 1%. Producer prices in December were up 2.3% when compared to the same period in 2016, and the average producer price index for the year 2017 has also increased 3.5% on year. The producer price index is seen as a barometer of future inflation as it indicates the wholesale price of goods and services, which will be reflected in consumer prices in the next few months. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
Trade between South Korea and the European Union in terms of volume reached a record-breaking 100 billion euros last year, or 123 billion US dollars. According to the official EU statistics provider Eurostat, the EU's exports to and imports from South Korea were both around $56 billion from January to November, a 19% increase on year. Compared to the total through October, the figure was up more than $10 billion, and for the year as a whole, experts forecast the total amount will surpass the 100 billion euro mark for the first time. South Korea actually saw a trade surplus with the EU through November. the first one in 4 years, raking in $860 million. The United States is into the second day of a government shutdown with little sign of progress as Republicans and Democrats continue to try and stick the blame on the other side. Experts say if the shutdown goes on, it could hurt the U.S. economy. Park So-yeon reports.
The U.S. Senate is trying to find ways to reach a consensus to bring an end to the government shutdown before economic repercussions start to bite. A bill to fund the federal government did not receive the required 60 votes, as Republicans did not have sufficient votes to pass the bill without the Democrats' support. Senate Democrats have refused to agree on government funding unless President Trump agrees to deal with legislation to protect about 700,000 immigrants who are illegally brought to the country as children. The Republican leader of the Senate expressed his dissatisfaction over the shutdown.
And all of this was totally unnecessary. There is a broad consensus on both sides of the aisle that DACA and other issues related to illegal immigration require a compromise solution. Almost everybody here, Democrat and Republican, believe we need to get to a solution on the DACA issue and related immigration matters. Bipartisan, bicameral negotiations have been underway for months.
So far, there has been minimal economic impact to the government shutdown, as the early days included the weekend. However, if the impasse drags on, the shutdown could hurt the U.S. economy. White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney told Fox News on Sunday that the government shutdown could persist for weeks. The longer the shutdown goes on, the stronger the economic impact, increasing the possibility that the U.S. economy's recent growth spurt could stall. The government would delay issuing federal checks, slowing the work process, as well as harming consumer and business optimism. The last government shutdown in 2013 lasted 16 days and cost $20 billion in output and cut 0.5% off annual economic growth. The Congressional Research Service also estimates that government shutdowns cost the U.S. economy at least 0.1 percentage point of growth per week. Economists say the shutdown would not only affect Washington, but will also have ripple effects across the U.S. Park So-yeon, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
With under 3 weeks to go until the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games, the International Olympic Committee and representatives from the two Koreas have ironed out details of the North's participation in the Olympics over the weekend in Switzerland. And before we dig deeper into this with an expert, our Lee Seung-jae tells us more about the IOC meeting and what we can expect from North Korea at next month's Games.
46, 22, and 5. Those were the key numbers from the four-way talks at the IOC headquarters in Lausanne, Switzerland over the weekend. North Korea will send 46 athletes and delegation members to the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, including 22 athletes who are set to compete in 5 sports: women's ice hockey, figure skating, short track speed skating, cross-country skiing, and alpine skiing. Do Jong-hwan, South Korea's Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, who was at the talks, once again stressed the importance of North Korea's participation at the Winter Games.
The IOC believes the top agenda for the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics is for dialogue, understanding and peace. We have been talking for 2 days to make that happen. It's meaningful that through sports we can open the path to peaceful coexistence and exchanges rather than military confrontation.
Among the 22 athletes set to compete, 12 North Korean women ice hockey players were added to the roster, making the total number of players on the joint Korean team roster at 35. As part of the deal to have a joint team, head coach Sarah Murray must play at least 3 North Korean players in each game. Another agreement was joint training for the ski team, set to take place at Mount Kumgang and the Masikryong ski resort in the North's eastern region in a 3-day program beginning Tuesday. The joint session will also include a joint cultural event in the Mount Kumgang area. The North Korean athletes will travel to PyeongChang on February 1st via rail. The rest of the delegation, including the performance team and the Taekwondo demonstration team, will arrive on February 7th. With the eyes of the world on the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, the two Koreas will walk side by side at the opening ceremony on February 9th, with the Korean unification flag leading the way. And when the joint women's ice hockey team take to the ice for the first time on February 10th, the Korean folk song Arirang will be played as their anthem. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And to tell us more about the meeting with the IOC as well as the latest on the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, Dr. Bong Young-sik, a researcher at the Yonsei Institute for North Korean Studies, joins us in the studio today. Welcome to the program.
How are you?
All right, so the meeting between the delegations from the two Koreas and Olympic officials wrapped up in Switzerland on Saturday. Now tell us more about this meeting and what came out of it.
The meeting went really smoothly. I guess the governments and the IOC headquarters came to their agreements quite fast. Most important development is the agreement to have a unified women's ice hockey team without diminishing the number of the South Korean athletes participating in the event, which is 23, but only add 12 extra members from North Korea. So the entire roster will be 35. And Switzerland and Japan, who will face the unified Korean team, issued a protest that this is not fair because they only have the roster composed of the 23 athletes as opposed to 35. But I believe that the South Korean government and North Korean government's priority is to make this joint celebration combining not only the spirit of the sports but also inter-Korean relations. So all in all, North Korea will send 46 members. Okay. 22 of them will be athletes competing in 5 events, and 24 members who are staff, coach, and reporters.
Okay, well, and now a 7-person delegation from North Korea led by the head of the Moranbong band, Hyon Song-wol, was scheduled to cross the border into South Korea on Saturday, but now this visit was abruptly canceled the evening before. But then Hyun and the delegation ended up crossing the border on Sunday. What happened here?
Well, I can't really read the minds of the North Korean authority because it's the most opaque system. But it has been reported that the North Korean authority wanted to increase the bargaining leverage on South Korean government by dictating the schedule and the format of the inspection visit. And they also expressed discontent about the way the South Korean media has been portraying North Korea's participation in the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games. But I believe that such behavior by North Korean government only shoot themselves at their feet because it is very important for North Korean authority to project the image of peace and cooperation if it wants to celebrate jointly the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games and try to project the image that the North Korean people are also peace-loving people, so that economic sanctions and possible military actions in the name of denuclearization on North Korea will be too harsh. Right. So projecting very harsh image or the engaging in negative tactics towards South Korean government, which must be the best helping hand for North Korea under the current circumstances, will be a backfire.
It won't help them that much,
no.
Right? All right. Well, Seoul will also be dispatching an advanced inspection team on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. So, what will the team be doing there?
Well, it will be a delegation composed of the 12 members, led by the director of the Unification Division in the Ministry of National Unification, Mr. Lee Ju-tae. And the main mission is inspecting the facility of the Kumgang Art Center and tourist site and the Masikryang Ski Resort for the joint events, the concert in the Mount Kumgang tourist site and the joint training of the skiers from both sides in the Masikryang Ski Resort.
I know you just mentioned it, but what significance does the joint cultural event in the Mount Kumgang region hold for inter-Korea relations?
It has many layers. One, it is an expression of the joint celebration of the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games. And the second, logistically, it is very important for both Koreas to actually agree to open up 3 main land routes that connecting both sides. One is the West Coast route, and the other one which is called the Gyeonggi line, that has long been used as a main lane for the Kaesong Industrial Complex, which has been shut down since February 2016 in the aftermath of North Korea's nuclear test and missile test. And another communication and transportation line has been the Panmunjom line. And the third one is what you just mentioned, the East Coast line that connects the Mountain Gyeonggang area and the southern part of South Korea. So although it's a very symbolic and temporary, but opening up all three main landlines by the agreement of the both government has a very symbolic significance.
And going along with that, I mean, I know those lines are opened up temporarily, but do you see chances of them being opened up permanently after?
Well, there has been wild speculation, especially in the South Korean media, that this will eventually lead the lot of the resumptions of the previous inter-Korean economic cooperation projects, such as the resumption of the Kaesong Industrial Complex or the rebooting the tour program at Mountain Gyeonggang and whatnot. But we have to wait and see, because as President Moon Jae-in himself clearly announced in his New Year's press conference that all these measures cannot be changed, because these measures are in the framework of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, i.e. the economic sanctions on North Korea. Although technically speaking, dispatching the athletes, skiers to the Masikryong ski resort is in violation of the so-called May 24 measures, which bars any visit by private South Korean citizens to any part of North Korea without government's approval. But it's a temporary relaxing of the May 21st measure. But it is still very uncertain how these temporary measures will lead to any concrete outcomes in the future.
Now, what about the military talks, which the two sides during their first face-to-face on January 9th agreed to hold? But what's the latest on that?
Well, that's a very good question, and it has been quite strange that the North Korean authority has been extremely hesitant and reluctant to move along with these two items. One is the acceleration of the military-to-military talk and the family reunion program. With regards to these two agendas, North Korean authority has been extremely slow and passive. I guess the main reason is that there is a gulf between what South Korean government wants to achieve in the military-to-military talk, which is the prevention of the accidental military conflicts, and what North Korea wants to have in the military-to-military talk, which is a termination of the annual joint military exercises by the U.S. forces in South Korea and U.S. military and the South Korean military. So I guess the North Korean authorities' own strategic judgment is that there is no need to rush into these two agendas.
And I guess questions lie over what path the two Koreas will end up taking after the PyeongChang Winter Olympics.
Yeah, there is a growing concern that this might be just peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula that can only last 2 months during the PyeongChang Olympic Games and Paralympic Games. And well, we have to wait and see. The big strategy for Moon Jae-in government is to make this as a good bridge between thawing the tension between the two Koreas and the beginning of the meaningful bilateral negotiations, diplomatic negotiation between Washington and Pyongyang on the issue of denuclearization of North Korea. But if North Korea will go back to its usual attitude, including resumption of the provocations and additional test of ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, or new nuclear tests, and all bets will be off the table. Then the arguments in favor of toughening up the economic sanctions and even considering taking military actions on North Korea will gain traction, because the entire world would say that we gave South Korea and North Korea a chance, but the chance has been wasted. So we have no alternative but to take tougher sanctions and other measures.
Now, according to government sources, North Korea plans to host a series of military events in celebration of the 70th anniversary of Korean People's Army in Pyongyang just a day before the opening of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. What can we make of this?
Well, if I were working for the North Korean government, which I do not, I would advise the North Korean authority, should think twice. Because as I said before, that it will only undercut the efficacy of this peace offensive initiated by the North Korean government. Look at Mr. Hyon Song-wol projecting very warm, approachable, peaceful image. Thanking citizens of the city of the Gangneung. They were so warm. On the other hand, the North Korean media has been lashing out South Korean government conservative members at the National Assembly and the media for false news and defamation as well, calling them garbage. So if North Korea goes ahead with the military parade in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the nation, then it will spoil the other aspects of its peace offensive toward South Korea and the world during the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games. So it will be a backfire. It will be a backlash to North Korean government itself.
Now, critics also say that although talks on the Olympics with North Korea have been going smoothly, we can't let our guards down, considering that North Korea has threatened before to withdraw from the Olympics and also strongly criticized President Moon Jae-in for his remarks on unwavering sanctions on North Korea's nuclear development program. So what are some of the existing concerns over the North's participation in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics?
Well, as I said, that North Korea may not be ready to, deal with Moon Jae-in government of South Korea as it is, not as it hoped it is, because Moon Jae-in government is based upon the wide and strong, consensus of support of people, and Moon Jae-in government's mandate is a people-centered national security policy and economic policy. So North Korea should not just demand Moon Jae-in government go back to 2000. June 15, when there was a first inter-Korean summit meeting. Although North Korean officials tried to remind South Korean government that we have to go back to the spirit of the national solidarity in 2000. But a lot of things have happened in the past 18 years, and Moon Jae-in government is probably the biggest beneficiary of the cumulative changes of Korean society, including the great candlelight demonstration, revolution. So Moon Jae-in government has a mandate to serve. And Moon Jae-in government cannot just unilaterally and unconditionally receive and realize all kinds of demands made by North Korean authority in the name of moving toward national unification. The South Korean society and population demand fairness, justice, and compassion. And Moon Jae-in government promised those values to South Korean people. So North Korean government has to devise and revise its engagement with South Korea, more focus on actual improvement of the inter-Korean relations and making the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games truly a successful global event, not just the inter-Korean event.
I mean, there has been some controversy and even opposition from within South Korea in regards to the North participating in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Do you think the government has been handling this well in that regard?
It has been sloppy and disappointing, honestly speaking, because Moon Jae-in government announced its intention to invite North Korean athletes and delegation in June last year. So although there had not been official confirmation by North Korean government until December last year, and the actual decision was delivered in the New Year's message by Chairman Kim Jong-un. But Moon Jae-in government had at least 6 months to prepare for all these contingencies, including the controversies surrounding the government's unilateral decision without prior consultation with the athletes and coach of the women's ice hockey team to make the unified team with the North Korean athletes. And I think it really hurts the credibility and the image of the Moon Jae-in government, because the biggest political capital of this government has been that this government is different from the previous government in terms of good communication with people, people-centered approach, and compassion. Now people will question whether this government is just one of many same governments, as well illustrated by the plummeted approval rating by about the 6% in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
So unless the Moon Jae-in government is going to handle the damage already done by all these decisions to accommodate the participation of the North Korean athletes and delegation, then even after successful Winter Olympic Games, the Moon Jae-in government's political capital has to be replenished.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
You're welcome.
And that brings us to the end of our program. But stay tuned to Arirang for more updates on the PyeongChang Winter Olympics and other news throughout the day. As always, thank you so much for watching and goodbye for now.
A village full of exciting sports. It's PyeongChang. Shall we take a look inside the ice kingdom of sports? Look at the passion and speed on ice. Wow, the exquisite art on ice. It's the flower of winter sports, ice sports. Where passion meets the world, PyeongChang, Arirang.